I would I would say that somebody like in high school or just starting to get used to trading or investing, what they want to do is have an account big enough where they could write a put. Look at a stock and say, I want to buy this stock. And take a look at a put, maybe 6 months out or 3 months out or whatever, and write the put so that they're risking themselves potentially for 100 shares. And if it goes against them, they're going to own 100 shares lower down. So they've reached their objective. And if that put expires worthless in 3 months, take the proceeds and buy that much stock with it. Maybe only buying 8 shares of stock. But then you look at your next put, and then you could build positions based on the premiums you've collected. I think that's how I would advise a young trader to get going. Now look at Tesla. I mean, Tesla's a highly volatile stock,
Oh yeah.
and I'm doing that with Tesla. I went out and I bought a small position in Tesla. It went against me, but I said it's an investment position.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Markets and Madness, the place where we discuss the madness that occurs when economics, politics, and personalities all move in different directions, and we certainly are there today. How are you, Tim? Just you and I
Good,
today.
good. Observing life.
We had a lot of positive comments from our last podcast with Gary Tesaris. Um, I'm grateful he was coming on. He said he's going to be back, so that's great to hear. And we touched on a lot of subjects that I think people want to hear about. Um, One of the things that was interesting to a few people I had comments on was the idea of trading versus investing, you know?
Yeah,
And I
I
know
think that's so misunderstood.
yeah,
You know, if you're an investor, there's moments when you have to execute, and you got to become a trader in those times. So everything we talked about, they require different skill sets. If you're an investor,
hmm
first of all, your positions have to be sized in a way that you can experience drawdowns and forget about them. You know, frequently you get somebody say, "Yeah, I own this stock, or I got this position, and I don't pay any attention to it. I look at it once a quarter." Well, a trader can't do that because a trader's position is sized in a way that he's going to feel it minute to minute, hour to hour, um, and he's maybe deploying leverage. An investor wouldn't do that. But that said, from a timing standpoint, when an investor enters the market, he's much better off entering at the right time. So there's got to be a window of time where he's got to become a trader and look at the charts, look at the short term charts, and see where he's going to get in and how he's going to get in.
yeah.
So,
I mean, one of the things that I always did on the seminars that I've done in the past is I would draw. I'd have three sets of lines. One was up and down, up and down, up and down. One was a little wider, and then the third was just one simple arc. And you ask people, who are you? Like, what type of trader are you here? Are you the guy that wants to buy at 16 and sell at 16 and a half and then sell it at 19 and buy at 17? Or you're the guy that wants to buy at 16 and sell it at 30? Or you're the guy that wants to buy it in January and sell it in June? You got to figure out what your time frame is, and your stomach will tell you what type of trader you are. If you can't sit through the moment to moment pain, then you're going to be in and out, in and out, in and out.
yeah, when we wrote that book that we never published, one of the first chapters was know who you are.
Yeah.
You got to figure out who you are, and that is key. Am I a trader? Am I trading or am I investing? I was on a chat room one time, and the unemployment numbers came out. It was a big unemployment. Some guy said, "Oh, good, we just got 400,000 new day traders."
That's right. That's right. Everybody, I know what you always say when you used to give seminars. You ask people, "You have $1,000 account. How much do you intend to make on this account?" "Oh, I'm going to make 10 grand." All right, you can have a 10,000% return on your $1,000 investment. Yeah.
This the ghost of Joe Granville, you know. And that's the funny part of this, you know. I mean, you talk to a guy who builds houses, and you start talking about a roof and how you're going to get a roof fixed or whatever. The guy knows that you don't know what you're talking about, and he's inside his world. But if somebody buys 100 shares of XYZ stock and makes $1,000, he thinks he's Warren Buffett. They really think you could step into this, you know, and just close your eyes. And there's some commercial now that says that it's an AI solution to trading. No experience, no problem. And I'm thinking,
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
it's not that way.
200,000 new day traders. Here we are. Yeah.
So
Yes.
just to finish up on how to talk, expand on that a little bit. If you're trading as opposed to investing, it's pretty easy to establish a risk tolerance, a stop loss, and an objective. But I would say that probably the majority of investors that I've talked to don't have an objective in mind. They say, I own this, I got this position, and, you know, their intent is to own it for a lifetime, to really think about selling it. So it got me to thinking one time how you should set your objectives. And a day trader sets his objectives with a number. I'm long at 80 and I want to sell at 95 and I got a 5-point risk, so I put my stop loss in somewhere between 70 and 75, you know, and that's where I sit. But an investor, maybe he shouldn't look like that. Maybe an investor ought to be thinking, I'm in and the PE is 28. And if PE gets to 40, I'm going to get out. And if the PE gets to 15, I'm going to get out. Maybe that's how his objectives should be set.
The way I was, what always struck me is if you're a day trader, you're thinking in terms, when I traded in FX, it was in terms of pips.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy this at 17 and I make it up to 30 and I'm going to get out and I'm thinking of pips. And then when you graduate into that middle sphere, you think in terms of percent, right? So I'm going to buy this at 117.40 and I think I can make 2% on this trade. I think it's got 2% in it. Okay, well, it's the
Well, you're
bigger offer.
closer to an investor then, right?
Yeah, you're in that middle phase. But one thing I've always stressed to young guys is when you enter a position, you always have a stop loss and a stop profit in mind, and always be true to it because people say, "Well, I have a stop loss and I have a stop profit," and then what happens? You have an idea in your mind. You bought the stock at 20, and it goes up to 40, and you're thinking, "Should I? I'll get out at 45," and then all of a sudden it's 30 and then it's 22 and then it's 15, and you turn winners into losers because you're not disciplined about where you wanted to get out on your profit side as well. You could always get back in,
Yeah, but you never do.
yeah.
That's pretty hard, to be fair. I used to put trailing stop loss on the board. I'd explain a trailing stop loss. And everybody nodded. And then when I had the trading session and I moved the thing massively in one direction or the other, I would say, remember how easy it looked on the board when I plotted it, that trailing stop loss? It made so much sense and it was so logical. And you get lost in the emotion of it. I think the best trading I've ever done is when I've sold half of the position at my objective and let the
Right.
rest, and set a stop loss for the rest and let the rest ride for a bit.
Yeah, and as an investor, if you have a core principle that you're risking on, you're taking your bets on, you can add to losers. But as a trader, as a day trader, it's very tough to add to losers.
Yeah, you're too leveraged.
Yeah,
You're too leveraged. Your position size is too big to permit you to do that.
there's
I've
the
been
old
thinking
FX,
about.
the old FX line. You loved it at 60, you're gonna love it. You liked it at 60, you're gonna love it at 30. You bought it at 60 and you
Yeah,
liked it.
I
You're
got one
gonna
of
love it
those.
30
I
pips
got one of
lower.
those positions right now. Yeah. Um, the other thing I was thinking about, and I would say that somebody like in high school or just starting to get used to trading or investing, what they ought to do is have an account big enough where they could write a put look at a stock and say, I want to buy this stock, and take a look at a put, maybe 6 months out or 3 months out or whatever, and write the put so that they're risking themselves potentially for 100 shares. And if it goes against them, they're going to own 100 shares lower down. So they've reached their objective. And if that put expires worthless in 3 months, take the proceeds and buy that much stock with it. Maybe only buying 8 shares of stock. But then you look at your next put, and then you could build positions based on the premiums you've collected. You know, I think that's how I would advise a young trader to get going. Look at Tesla. I mean, Tesla's a highly volatile stock.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I'm doing that with Tesla. I went out and I bought a small position in Tesla. It went against me, but I said it's an investment position. I'm buying it to trade. And then I wrote a put, and it's a really good sized put. The premiums are really hefty. And when the stock was at a loss, the put actually threw the position in a profit. But my goal is to take the proceeds of that put and add it to my Tesla position.
Core position.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And since the volatility,
He agrees, obviously.
one thing that I've been doing since the volatility we saw in April, where we had those big lows and the announcement of the tariffs, and it was crushing the market. I've started to do a lot more of what I call risk reversals, which is buy the upside call, sell the downside put, and then if the market corrects and goes back down, I buy the stock at a cheaper price. And if it continues to fly, then I get lucky and I bought some, and I do this at zero cost or close to zero cost, where I always have an opportunity.
Yeah, those are really good positions. I had a pretty big position in a quantum computer stock. For me, big position for the size of the portfolio and the size I trade. So I want to lighten up. So I went out and sold half the position, and I put on risk reversals for that amount. I bought a call and I wrote a put, and I took the proceeds of the sale and I had profit, and I invested that in the risk reversal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good way to manage your risk. So what do you think of the world here?
Well, I had 2 calls since the announcement of the tariff deal with the Europeans, and both were very bullish. We're gonna buy everything. It's gonna be up forever. And I tempered their enthusiasm by saying, you know what, a lot of good news is priced in the market, and it feels like January all over again, where everybody was all bulled up. It's going, and I don't know what's going to turn it around, but everybody is just can't. It's give you an old Malcolm Summers line. It's bulletproof. Right? It can't go down. This is bulletproof.
Yeah, you have to say that with his accent and his ears.
Bulletproof, mate. Yeah. So it just scares me. And I said the close today is going to be very interesting. Last night, looking at the markets in the futures markets, I was up, I don't know, close to 200. And if we have a negative close today, I don't think that's going to bode well.
There are sectors I like based on the deal. I had that trade that didn't work out, buying the drillers and buying the
Hmm.
carriers of energy carriers and drillers, selling the
Oil itself.
yeah, and they collapsed along with the price. So that trade didn't work out. Half the trade worked and half the trade didn't, and it worked out worse. The trade that was bad was bigger than the trade that
Right.
worked. So I started closing up those positions about a month ago, but I kept the drillers, and I think this deal is very positive for drillers and carriers.
Hmm.
We're going to carry a lot more natural gas to Europe now. And Russia's now in a trade war with us. Russia's going to cut their prices. And he's given Putin 12 days, roughly.
I saw that. Yeah.
And we're going to see now what happens to energy.
And these are the sanctions that we were talking about right after the election. Like, how is he going to solve the Ukraine war? He's going to put massive tariffs on the Russians and cripple them again, similar to what Reagan did.
And Iran,
Yeah, and
and
Iran.
Iran,
Yeah.
yeah, and
So
maybe China. I mean, everybody's affected if they're third-party tariffs. If he said, "Look, if you buy from them, you can't trade with us, or you're gonna walk into a 60% tariff or something like that," um, he's basically stepping into another market. He's stepping into two other parties. So if you're Russia, there's going to be half your market that's going to say, well, I can't buy your oil no matter what your price is because the cost is too great with what I lose to the U.S. So that's going to start in another week or so, 2 weeks, I guess.
yeah,
And I think that's a real negative for energy, which is a good thing. Energy prices, crude oil drops, natural gas drops. That's a good thing. But I think the drillers and the carriers, more than the drillers, the natural gas carriers, should really benefit from this
so
deal.
back to that trade of being short oil and long the.
Well, I don't know about the short oil piece of it, um, but certainly I like the drillers. You know, we're lower down now, and you paid the price. We brought the drillers down with the crude, with the price of
Yeah,
the energy. So so now I think they're cheap,
better
whereas they weren't
opportunities to get in.
before.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's
yeah.
the side of that from a fundamental standpoint, I guess that's one way to play this European trade deal. The
And
other
the
thing
autos,
is,
they're supposed to buy a lot more autos from us too, right?
well, yeah, maybe. I
What they
don't
say.
know.
Yeah.
Call your average German and see if he's going to buy an American car. But
Well,
but it's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt U.S. exporters. But
mm,
how much it helps them remains to be seen.
yeah, and it's I didn't read anything about some of our food products, and I know some Trump was asked the question about I forget what specific sector, what specific food item they were talking, pushing about, saying how Europe's not going to buy it because all your meats, maybe it was, are so bloated with all these chemicals. And his response was, "Yeah, Bobby's working on it." So, so, so I think you got to be short big pharma, or at least take profits if you've been in there, because I think Kennedy is pushing on that as well.
And the other side to that trade is we don't really have a pharmaceutical industry in the U.S. um, to the extent that we import. I heard 70% of our pharma comes from China.
Crazy.
So that's a national security issue. So I think he'll do what he can to expand domestic pharmaceutical production. It's there's a lot of cross currents here, and you're right about everybody being uber bullish. They really are, but for good reason.
Yeah.
There's really good reason. The investors got to love this. Traders,
Once
yeah,
again,
maybe it's
it reminds me of January when he was first inaugurated. Everybody was bulled up as could be, and then April came and we were down 15%, right? Or
yeah.
close to it. Yeah. So,
So
and it
the
was
other
all.
thing we haven't talked about is this Tulsi Gabbard release and the potential for that. I mean, the FBI really gets a big black eye here.
Mhm.
Bongino said, "I'll never sleep again, knowing what I've seen. I could never be the same again." I mean, what the hell has he seen? um, Comey must have been really blatant. And Brennan is vulnerable here,
I
and Hillary's
saw I saw Rand Paul made a comment. He was the only one that voted against him at his confirmation hearing as
really.
director. And he says, "I hope I'm vindicated now. I'm the only one that voted against him."
He was a snaky guy.
Yeah.
Hillary, and you know, as you start to look into the whys of some of the actions. I mean, why did they raid Mar-a-Lago? They were looking for some documents, specific documents that have been released. Uh, why did they let Hillary off the hook for destroying those files, and particularly after Benghazi? And it looks like Comey was told to let her off the hook. So this is a black eye. This is way, way bigger than Watergate. And they're trying to obfuscate it. We had this conversation with the Epstein releases. And you know, this whole idea of moral equivalency has always bothered me. I mean, God gives you gray hair to convince you that the world's not black and white. So everything is gray. And sometimes you'll see something that's almost white and there's a couple of black specks or gray specks in it. And then another picture that's almost totally black with a couple of white specks. And a good lawyer or a good press agent, publicist, can take those spots and blow them out into proportion so that the two pictures look equal. And that moral equivalence game is what's being played here. And the Epstein story is a big story. It's a scandal, it's salacious, it's a lot of stuff. But if we were 40...
If the CIA was involved, and if it implicates Israel and it was all blackmail, it's more than just a salacious scandal.
True. And we don't know that.
Yeah. I mean, these are some of the things they're posturing that it's going out there.
I mean, that's potential. But I would say to you this. It's 40 years from now. And you got your grandkid on your lap. You're 105 years old. And you say, look, Ash, I was there for this story. And this is what happened. You know, this is when Tulsi Gabbard blew the lid on this. We actually saw what happened with Hillary and why they raided Mar-a-Lago and all of these things. And we saw a conspiracy inside the government, and it may have led to election management and so many things. And then there was the story about Epstein and having underage girls and you know, this one should get a paragraph and this one should get 3 chapters. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I'm saying if you look from an historical standard perspective, this conspiracy inside the government story is way bigger than at least what we know of the Epstein scandal at this point. Now anything can happen tomorrow. There could be releases tomorrow. But I can't make these equivalent stories. And that seems to be what the Democrats are trying to do. They're trying to wave this shiny Epstein object.
Well, as we talked about, you and I off camera yesterday, the response I keep getting about the Tulsi story is this is all about nothing. I mean, Rubio was on the committee that exonerated it, said there's nothing to see. There was no collusion. Right? So what was your response to?
Did you see Obama's statement?
No.
You got to read it, and it's very carefully worded. He basically said the conclusion was that Russia was meddling, and there's nothing to suggest that conclusion is wrong. That looks like it verifies that Russia was meddling. And then he says something about he does not mention that they were meddling in Trump's favor. But that's the story, that they were meddling and all that committee said is, yeah, we agree Russia was meddling. But that doesn't mean Russia was trying to get Trump elected. I mean, where's the logic in that? They had experienced Trump, you know? Who would you rather see if you were Putin, Trump or Hillary? I'd rather see Hillary. And even if they're neutral, they certainly didn't want to see Trump. And that's the story the press is carrying, that Russia was trying to help Trump, and that's been verified by that committee. And that's bullshit. That's just not the case. The committee didn't say that. And Obama's statement was completely away from that. So we'll see, you know, where this ends up. But there's landmines and stuff all over the place. And the problem here is that very important people have their names attached to this. So there's a lot of attempt to hide this, both stories, and slip them under the rug.
Yeah. Did you see Hunter Biden's interview, his rambling interview?
Yeah.
I mean, that was crazy.
The RNC should pay him.
Just keep him on a live loop.
Yeah, you know, put him on a retainer. Get him out there, you know. Boy, what a disaster. And he was
Yeah,
a disaster to his father too. Now he's saying he was on Ambien
right.
for the debate. It was like 2 weeks, 3 weeks difference, and he was jet lagged. He was jet lagged. Okay.
Stories, stories, stories. I mean, they do spin. The left does spin. They know how to do it.
The right too, but the left has a PhD in it. I mean,
That's
they're really
right. It's
good.
all about the spin. But just getting back to Trump and Epstein, I've mentioned this the last time we spoke. I think he's losing the base. You know, to your point about style. He originally came on here. We're going to get these. We're going to be totally transparent. Now he's saying, "What are you talking about? There's nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here. This is all fabricated story from the left. They devised all of this. It's not real." I don't know. It doesn't sit well, and I think
Yeah.
Middle American is looking at it and losing some trust in Trump because of that. Losing some
Didn't he?
trust in Bongino also. Bongino was on the radio saying, there's no way he killed himself. There's no way Epstein killed himself. And he come out and said, "I saw it. He killed himself." Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
it's,
what are you
it's
hiding? What are you hiding?
well. I mean, didn't Trump tell Tulsi Gabbard to release the full Epstein files? I thought
No,
he did.
release what's pertinent, or not release them all. Just release
Wow.
what's pertinent.
Okay.
And then he pulls it back and says, "Well, there's nothing to see. There's nothing."
Well, I think the roundup of the illegals is hurting Trump
The
because he
way they're
said, well,
doing it,
yeah, we're going to get the worst of the worst. And now, and
going into a
this,
Home Depot parking lot with a
yeah,
white van with masks on.
there's no easy way to do this. This is sausage being made. And part of me says, don't blame the guy trying to fix the problem. He's getting his hands dirty trying to fix them. Blame the guy who caused the problem.
Yeah.
But it's
Man
hard to
is
do.
cleaning out your sewer, right? And he's got shit all over your floor because he's cleaning out the sewer.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what it
That
looks
pretty
like.
much says it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I don't like the look of that. I've seen a couple of those videos where masked men in white unmarked vans pulling people out and cuffing them and throwing them in the back of the van.
Yeah.
It's not a
And
good
and
look.
their response to that is, look, this guy just shot a guy in the face, and he's illegal. That wouldn't have happened if he wasn't here, you know. And they embellish that, and
Yeah,
I would, if I had to pursue that point of view. And it's hard to refute, especially. Did you see what DeSantis said? They were talking about Alcatraz, alligator Alcatraz,
no,
and he said, yeah, they came here and they walked through the place and they said it's no good, and even though it meets all the facility requirements, and it's probably better than most of the prisons that we have. But that said, I haven't seen one of them come here and say hello to an angel mom, and and talk about somebody who's lost a child to an illegal. Yeah, I haven't seen any of that. DeSantis is good. I mean,
yeah,
he's loved here.
yeah, yeah. He strikes the right balance, and I think J.D. Vance, he got a lot of pushback on that first Zelensky Oval Office when he took on Zelensky, that whole mess. But
Yeah.
now I think he's got the base. He's got people behind him again because he's talking to the regular guy.
In what sense? What do you mean? Expand on that.
I saw something this morning that I think there was two. I don't know if they were illegals, rioters, whatever. There was a brawl in Cincinnati at some amusement park, and Vance said, "Well, these people, should be arrested. They should be taken in, and if the right kind of people were around, they would have kicked their asses, and this wouldn't be happening again." So I think the regular guy, the lunch pail guy, is like, "Yeah, that's right, that's right. We kicked
This
their
just happened in Walmart. Was it in Michigan this week?
yeah,
Some guy stabbed 13 people in Walmart. Another guy pulled a gun on him
yeah."
and held him at gunpoint.
and stopped it and shut it down.
Yeah.
But I think Vance is getting a lot of, like, he's talking straight. He's not hiding behind anything. He's talking the way he feels. And I saw Rubio. Somebody brought up to Rubio the other day, asked him if he would be if he considered running for president in 28. And he said, "I think J.D. Vance is doing a great job. I don't see any reason why to even entertain this."
Yeah, he supported Vance.
Yeah.
I saw that.
So a Vance Rubio ticket looks.
The only spoiler was DeSantis, if he decides. But he got blown away by Trump, so.
Is it term limit out? I mean, is there term
Yeah, I
limits
think
in
so.
Florida?
Yeah.
So
And he's a very solid guy. I mean, he runs a tight ship here. He really is.
yeah.
But he didn't fare very well against Trump in the primary, so.
And there was a long time in this country where we elected governors as president. And I think Obama broke that trend when he was a senator. And then Biden is a senator.
Let me go out on a limb there. Obama, to me, was a community activist. He's Al Sharpton with a better haircut. You know? I mean, his solution to a problem, I don't like that law. I'm not going to change the law. I'm just going to flood the zone and overrun the law and make it ineffective. And then that's really what Biden did, if it was Biden. And that's an open question. But we want more illegals in this country. Don't try to change the law. Don't try to raise the quota. Don't try to streamline the system. Just overrun the system. And that's what he did.
The whole idea of sanctuary cities, we've discussed this for many years, that when you have governors that aren't enforcing the law, that feel that they're above the law, then why should the common man feel he should abide by the laws of the land?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this. I mean, I told you I was thinking about writing a book. Or I don't know if it's going to be an article or a book. You know, there's a couple of things that back in the 18th century, people like John Locke and Montesquieu wrote about, you know, what a government should be and the difference between the European model and the American model is the European model says the sovereign is the king. But the American model says, no, the sovereign's not the king. You, in fact. And I saw Gingrich refer to this, or Mark Levin, I guess one of them, refer to this, using this term, the sovereign. I've thought about it a different way. But he said, you are the sovereign. And the American model is our rights are ours. We hold these truths to be self-evident because we are endowed by our Creator with these rights. And the Europeans want to give those rights to the emperor, the sovereign, and have the sovereign distribute those rights. So we're at a point now where state governments, just to bring it around to your point, state governments and local governments have become sovereigns in their own rights. And you can make an argument that it's both more and less American, that it's there is a supremacy clause in the Constitution that makes the federal government supreme over the state. So there, the states have no rights, and then the cities have no rights to disobey. So we're at a point now where a lot of our fundamental beliefs and the things that we codified into the Constitution are challenged, and maybe more accurately, have gone unchallenged. Those challenges have gone unchallenged.
Right.
Congress has abrogated its responsibility. And I think that's one of the things that Trump is really doing here. He's forcing the courts to rethink and litigate these issues. He's saying to the courts, should we have a birthright citizen clause? Is that really what it says? Read that again. It says, if people are born subject to our rule, well, they didn't come in as consent of the governed to come in. You know, they came in illegally. They came in and did not accept our sovereignty. So doesn't that negate that birthright clause? And these are arguments that we really should have had 20, 30 years ago. And I blame all of them, Democrats and Republicans, for not having this argument. When somebody steps over that line, that constitutional line, we have to say, let's bring this to the courts. Let's have the Supreme Court nip this in the bud and decide where it is, and then we're paying a price for that.
And the left is going to argue that the Supreme Court's not valid because it's loaded, right? It's depending on who gets to nominate. The court is no longer objective. The court is political. They
Yeah.
politicize the court. But
Well,
the left wanted to add, six more members or five more members, right? And add them all on. So I don't know if you
it
could
wasn't
talk.
loaded when it was biased the other way. Is the problem? Yeah.
Right.
In the army, we used to say your side, my side, the army way. And people say your side, my side, and the truth. There's three things. But now, now the truth is there's no such thing as the truth anymore. And
Yeah.
that's what confuses the markets more than anything. You know, they're talking about AI fabricating and creating frauds. You don't need AI. I mean, you just make a specious argument, and somebody blows it completely out of proportion, and the press runs with it. And really ludicrous arguments that reach the light of day that should not be entertained by any thinking individual. Friends of ours that we talk about make the stupidest arguments. And I'm sure they're on some podcast talking to their brothers saying, that Tim and Fred, they make the stupidest arguments.
Stupidest arguments. Yeah. I know. We've said this many times as well that people see the world through their own eyes. That don't confuse me with the other side, and and I don't know when that really changed in this country, but I remember growing up, and you had Rockefeller was a liberal Republican, right? He was. You had the Rockefeller Republicans, which weren't in step, and you had Democrats that were on the other side of the aisle, right? And people would flow. You wouldn't just go in lockstep with what the leader said. And I don't know when it started. Pelosi certainly had the left in lockstep in the House, without a
They're
doubt,
still there. They're still there.
without a doubt. And if it's not the party line, they just, is it the money? Are they getting money, and that's why they have to do that? But
Pelosi
everybody has
was
their own.
Pelosi was a huge fundraiser.
Yeah. So, I mean, that really has been a problem in this country that I could see, is that leaders don't think for themselves. Everybody wants their own piece of the pie, and they go in lockstep with what the leadership says and thinks, and
It's a problem with the markets too, because the markets don't really know what to believe.
yeah,
If COVID taught us anything, it taught us that we're mushrooms. We're fed shit and kept in the dark. And every release, this Tulsi Gabbard release is probably the biggest one. You know, the wheels within wheels inside of that. But we really can't believe what we see. And how do you trade on that basis?
well, since the virus, I mean, the last 5 years, I said it at the beginning, and I still maintain it to this day. I spent the first 60 years of my life believing everything the government said verbatim. And once the virus hit and all the mandates that came in with vaccines and everything about it, I believe nothing. I believe nothing. And you could say that about everything: politics, economics. Believe nothing. I don't believe anything that comes through. You have to be your own advocate and search things out.
Well, trading is mob psychology. You have to try to figure out what the mob is going to focus or find important this week and then trade on that basis. And mob psychology is influenced by the press. So when the press decides that this is an issue, they're inserting it into mob psychology. So trading has become very difficult in an age where the press determines what is true and what's not. They decide what's true and what's not. We're in that kind of environment. And
Yeah,
it's a scary environment. It really is.
I just go back to that famous line during the virus: "Trust the science." Well, that's the whole point of science, is not to trust it, to always question the science, right? And to me now we have to question everything, because we were told, no, you have to take the pablum. You have to take this spoon fed yourself. We're going to take care of you. So it's,
Well, we've gone, I don't know, I guess it's incorrect to say we've gone full circle. But when I was a kid, you saw different aspects of the news from the same moderator. You could actually get both sides of the argument by looking at the three networks. Can't do that anymore now. You have to select your network for the side of the argument you want. And it's like the old joke: a guy's wife walks in on him when he's in bed with the maid, and he's getting dressed, and she says, "What are you doing?" He says, "What are you going to believe, me or your own eyes?" He's denying it. So we see it with our own eyes, and we can't believe it anyway.
right.
This
Right.
is really an age where you gotta take your chances on whether or not what you're seeing is real or not, and that's becoming more and more the case every day.
And I think, we have to applaud Elon Musk once again for the purchase of Twitter and running it as X. A lot of people say it is a lot of bullshit and a lot of fabricated. Yeah, you're right. There is a lot of phony stuff that's being put out there, whether it's AI influenced or somebody's opinion. But that's the whole point. You get to pick and choose what you look at both sides, and then you decide what you think is right and what is fair. And we never had that before. They drowned it out the other side.
Well, true. I don't disagree with that. But one of the wrinkles is we're seeing a lot of opinions that are called facts.
Mm-hmm.
People state something as fact, and they'll even say it. The fact is, you hear them say, and it's not a fact at all. And we've got an education system that's not training you to be discerning about this kind of stuff. You hear it's a fact, and you shrug your shoulders and say, "Okay, it must be true. It's a fact. You just said it's a fact." But it's bullshit. It's not a fact. It's his opinion. Case in point, what we were just talking about, the Rubio endorsing him. What's fact and what's opinion there? I went and looked at the statement, and it looked to me like, it was as I just presented it. And I'm assuming that that's fact. But how can you be sure today? You can't be sure.
That's right.
This book I'm thinking about writing. Imagine two aliens talking, who's been observing the Earth, and they say, "Well, one of the forces that they have to deal with is gravity." I mean, gravity exerts a lot of them. How did they teach? How did it teach the organisms to negotiate gravity? And one of them said, "Well, they don't. The kid's born and at 2 or 3 months old, they throw him on the floor on a blanket, and he's got to fend for himself. He's got to learn how to balance and how to walk and how to negotiate gravity. And in a very real sense, we're learning how to negotiate a bullshit environment where fact and opinion are mislabeled. We have to negotiate that kind of environment as investors and traders.
Truman Show. Remember that movie? Jim Carrey, The Truman Show?
No,
The
I
whole,
remember the movie, but I don't think I ever saw it.
it was, his life was a soundstage. So it was all, for public consumption as theater. And that was his life. Truman. Yeah, The Truman Show. All right. Well, anything else you want to add?
I think this pressure on Powell is worth considering. I got to say,
Turns me
Powell,
off. It turns me off when he pushes Powell to cut.
I agree with you. I agree with you, but we have to accept that he's effective. He gets it done. He's like a heat-seeking missile. He doesn't give up. So he's going to continue to press good, bad, whatever. I mean, the reality, in my opinion, is he's not going to give up. He's going to find some way to short-circuit Powell. A shadow Fed, maybe abusing him. Luna, the representative woman in Florida,
Right.
referred him for perjury, and he's got this massive renovation product
Project.
as a weapon that he could use against him. So who the hell knows? But I wouldn't be surprised to see him force Powell out in some way. It would not shock me. What are the odds? I don't think they reach 50-50. It's probably 60-40 against. But I wouldn't put it past him to do that. He wants Powell out. He wants rates lower. And if, in fact, he's successful, to me, that means dollar lower, yield curve steeper.
Mm-hmm.
You're threatening the integrity of the Fed.
Speaking to someone this morning who's in the real estate business and he's a big producer, he says we have to have these rates lower. 7% mortgages are killing this market. There's so much oversupply. And I'm thinking, well, Powell doesn't control the 10-year. I don't. The market will determine that.
But I don't think the 10-year would act
With a
poorly.
50 basis point cut, I agree.
25-50, no problem.
Right,
25 to 100, big problem.
right. And once you start mandating things in the real estate market, like home ownership, what they did with the Clinton, the Community Reinvestment Act, or if the administration decides they're going to push rates down to zero, it turns things upside down. Look what's gone on with college education. Once the government got involved in making colleges everybody affordable, the price of tuition went through the roof, right?
I told you I had a lecture about that. Right?
Yeah.
I said, imagine if the government decided that everybody should have a laptop computer. And they said, all right, we're going to give you a laptop computer. It's worth $2,500. What's just happened to the price of laptops? The government pushes them down. And all of a sudden, isn't that what they did with education? Demand for laptops would fly if the government would give you $2,500 to buy a laptop. Laptops, there'd be a scarcity. There wouldn't be any laptops around. And the price of them would zoom. And that's exactly what we did with college education.
Right.
We said, we're going to make money available so that it's affordable. And then the colleges just raised the prices because the demand went up. It's exactly.
And AI is going to put all these degrees out of business, and the plumber and the electrician and the carpenter are going to be the ones that are still going to be standing.
Yeah. That's a whole other conversation where that goes. Anyway.
All
that's
right.
it.
Well, have a good week. I think it was a
Sure.
good chat.
All right.
And we'll see how it plays out.
Talk to you soon.
Yep.